Hey, good morning. It is Monday, April 1st, 2019. It is April Fool's Day, and I'm going to spend my day making sure that I don't get fooled. At least not by anything totally egregious and stupid. Monday, what's going on? I woke up very tired this morning, like just soup's groggy, and just like not achy, but just, I don't know, everything felt heavy and I was tired. So it took me a little bit longer to get myself up and moving this morning than I normally would like, but I guess we all have the days. I'm curious if it was just a repercussion of it being daylight savings time yesterday, and while I'm still on the same sleep schedule, I would like maybe that lost hour is catching up with me somehow. I don't know. We'll see how I feel tomorrow morning when I wake up. Hopefully it's a little less groggy and more alert and ready. So Monday, I'm up, I'm moving, I'm going to go to the gym now, and then after the gym, I'm going to come back, I'm going to tidy, do some laundry, and study. That's the kind of the main gist of the day. Just get things ready for Dad and Becky and get myself ready for Dad and Becky to be here for a week. So all very exciting. I'm super pumped that they're almost here. Yesterday was a good day. I spent a good amount of the afternoon just getting my study materials ready and organized, and then slowly starting to think through a study schedule. So we got 20 distinct topics to work through, and I am going to start powering through and making sure I remember the important stuff, especially for econ where there's a lot of graphs involved, trying to just think through the best way to remember how different things on graphs work, and when you kind of add in different elements and what that does to the supply, to the demand, to all the pricing, all of that, it's important in practicing labeling and all of that good stuff. So, which means that today is also the first day of Cassie spends time reviewing her materials on camera, and this morning we're reviewing Tariffs, which is a protectionist trade policy. A tariff is essentially like a tax. It is when, so like, you have your domestic demand, domestic supply, and then when you open it up for trade, you have the world price, and then what happens when you put the world price in is that it hurts local, I'm blurry, it hurts local sellers, domestic sellers, because the price has dropped and then they are no longer making as much money. So a tariff essentially raises the world price, so it raises the price on imports, which helps local producers. It raises revenue or like opens the market up a little bit more for local producers and gets it closer back to the equilibrium that would exist if there wasn't trade. I'm visualizing the graph because I drew it like 4 times yesterday. You have your domestic demand, your domestic supply, your world price, slightly above that is your tariff price. And then what happens when you add in a tariff is that the consumer surplus decreases, but the local producer surplus increases. And you have to think about, well, how does that offset each other? Consumers are now paying more, but so they're less happy, and then local producers are now gaining more money, so they're more happy. And then there's this added element of a lot of consumers work for the local producers. So while they might have to pay more for a good, they're also maybe benefiting because their producer, the company that they work with, has more money and is maybe paying them more, can give them more in benefits or other things like that. So there's kind of this weird connected relationship. And then also when you add in a tariff, there is this kind of the central part of the graph. There's a rectangle in the center. Let me see if I have it here. Right there is the tariff revenue. And so that's the revenue that the government is making based off of that's revenue the government is making based off of the tariff. So the government, it's in the government's interest potentially to have the tariff because they're making more revenue then. But also then when you add a tariff, you're creating deadweight loss, which didn't exist previously in the market, where no one is benefiting and there's just like a loss of goods essentially, or like unused goods or unsold things, because the supply and demand aren't aligned like they should be. So let's review here. What did I miss? So you have, when you put the world supply in, you have two different supplies. You have like the supply from the local firms, and then you have the supply from the imports specifically. So, and that's right where the world price meets the domestic supply line, and then where the imports world price meets the domestic demand line. Trying to think of what else, and then I think I covered a good amount of it. Again, consumer surplus decreases, local domestic producer surplus increases, revenue is created for the government, and deadweight loss is then created where there are certain amounts of goods not being sold or used because of the way the demand and supply works. So overall tariffs, again, a tax essentially for trade policy, and it's a way for governments to be protective of their industries. And sometimes you want to be because, the industry is young and it's a baby or nascent industry, infant industry, and it's, you want to protect it until it's strong enough to really compete on the global market. And it's a way to protect your local producers, and make sure that they feel happy and protected. It's complicated though, to what level and to how do you make sure, because trade is about efficiencies, right? And they're why is there trade is because we can create this this good better or more efficiently than you can, and you can create this other good better and more efficiently than we can. So instead of us trying to produce both and you trying to produce both, we'll just focus on the one we're better at and you focus on the one you're better at, and we'll come to terms and trade it, which is, it's a more efficient system potentially, but then it's at the cost of local producers being able to maybe sell a thing that the country as a whole is less good at. So, and it also means it could potentially create a race to the bottom because labor is so cheap elsewhere that labor-intensive goods all get outsourced. There's this fuzz floating around. Labor-intensive goods all get outsourced from highly capitalized countries like the U.S. and most Western countries. So anything that's labor-intensive in its production will get outsourced, and so any businesses within highly capitalized countries that are more focused on equipment and things like that, all of those sellers lose out because all of their workers are being exported. I guess the sellers aren't losing out so much because they're still maybe making profit, but then people lose out because there's no more jobs, and then they have to be retrained to do other things that are probably more technically advanced and maybe require more education, which is costly, and governments need to be able to provide that cost to retrain workers for the more advanced economy, assuming that people want to. And then it's what happens when you're 60 and you're going to retire at 67, and are you really going to retrain for that many years? What does that look like, and how do you then kind of scrape by, and is that fair? So it's complicated, trade, and we're going to talk more about trade in probably another video, but that's kind of the underlying issues with trade is how do you address and deal with both local producers, consumers, your consumers, and also then do things that create efficiencies, because sometimes when you add a tariff or something, like, you're actually decreasing efficiency because right, like you're saying, like, we're going to do this even though someone else can do it better or quicker or more efficiently than someone else. So tariffs: reduce consumer surplus, increase local producer surplus, give government revenue, create deadweight loss. Yeah, those are the main things about tariffs. It reduces the quantity of imports, which is obvious. Producers are winning, consumers kind of losing, but they also work for the producers in a lot of ways, so there is a little bit more tension there. And then there's just a total decrease in surplus. So the total surplus that existed before with trade but without tariffs has decreased. So that is tariffs in a nutshell. Come back tomorrow for something that's probably focused on theories of public policy. It's going to be a hoot, but this was fun. I enjoyed explaining it, and I feel like I definitely kind of reinforced some things I was working on yesterday. So, we're just really in and out of focus today. Don't know what that's about. So yeah, happy Monday. This is my stack of cards for econ. It's huge. But yeah, I will know it all. Test in 23 days is happening. So happy Monday. Make good choices.